Cheers. Let's go back. Good evening. It's muted. It's making me anxious that it's muted.
Yep.
Whew. Good evening. The truth is, I do feel anxious for this talk. I'm very anxious for this talk for a couple of reasons. No, really, my palms are sweating right now. I can actually feel it. I'm a little dry in the mouth. My heart's okay, but my stomach's a little bit uncomfortable. But that's good. It's a positive, good thing that I feel a little bit uncomfortable right now. The reason is this. In the next however many minutes that I speak, I want to turn the entire concept of anxiety on its head for you, change everything you know about anxiety, and to give you 4 steps to turn anxiety from something you detest, something you want to get rid of, from your enemy to your friend. And you're a very esteemed, wonderful audience, and we don't share a language or a culture. So if I didn't feel anxious going into this talk, something would be wrong. Let me ask you, though, how many of you in the last 6 months have felt reasonably anxious, uncomfortable, or stressed? Put your hand up. If you have felt anxious, uncomfortable, or stressed in the past 6 months, please put your hand up. Okay, almost everyone. Did anyone not put their hand up? There's a couple people who did not put their hand up. I'm most worried about you who did not put your hand up. And here's why. If you look at the last 5 years, this is what the world has been through. It needs no explanation. If you are paying attention to the news, if you are aware of what's going on geopolitically, economically, in terms of technology, disease, natural ecological issues, climate change, and maybe especially in certain regions of the world, if you don't feel anxious, are you awake? Are you alive? What's wrong? I did not come to this conclusion without going through my own anxiety. I was not taught this in my clinical training. I was taught the opposite. I was taught that anxiety is a disease and it's always a problem and you have to get rid of it, and that it's an indication that you're weak or that you're doing something wrong. And I realized that that's not the case. Here's how I realized that wasn't the case. I'm going to tell you a story. At the beginning of the pandemic, in March, beginning of April 2020, I felt very, very anxious. And the reason is because I had an anxiety center, and there were 500 active patients who were receiving clinical care by myself and by my staff. And there were reports in the news of anxiety and depression and substance abuse and suicide increasing because of the pandemic. And I was very concerned what was going to be with all these patients who were under the care of myself and my faculty. Not to mention, the clinic was in a different state. It was in New York, and I was in Massachusetts with my family. I was very concerned. And to my surprise, a couple months later, I turned around, and the patients who were coming in for care, who were anxious, who were receiving mental health treatment at the beginning of the pandemic, a couple months later, they were doing very well. They were thriving. They were flourishing. But their friends who had previously not had significant anxiety, they were the ones falling apart. So I said to myself, this must be that I'm just a really great therapist, because my anxious patients are having higher stress and they're doing great and everyone else is falling apart. Isn't that awesome? It must be my clinic. But no, it wasn't. I called up my friends in different offices and different clinics throughout the world, and they told me the same thing, that the patients who had significant anxiety before March 2020, as long as they started treatment before the pandemic, in April and May and June of that year, they were actually doing fine. So I said, this is very strange. This is a high-risk group of people who have pre-existing anxiety, and they are doing better than people who had never had significant anxiety before? Very odd. So I wrote an article about it to be funny, called The Blessing of an Anxiety Disorder. It was on the pages of Prevention magazine, and what I wrote is that if you were blessed to have an anxiety disorder prior to the pandemic, then you were actually going to do better during this period of stress. I thought it would be like a funny piece that people would be entertained by. And the next thing I know, hundreds of emails start pouring into my inbox by people saying, I had anxiety before the pandemic, I got help, and I'm doing great, and all my friends are falling apart. So now I'm really confused, because apparently there's an international trend of people who have high anxiety who are doing better during the most stressful period in recent human history. This is starting to shake my world. And then I looked at the data. My dear and wonderful colleague, Dr. Stephen Pirutinsky, and I published a paper. We published it in Open Access +1, so it's fully available. You can take a look at the actual full paper if you want, and all the results and all the data is available. That the patients who came in for anxiety treatment before March, the middle of March 2020, as long as they came in for one session, they did not statistically have an increase of anxiety at any point between April and December 2020. Now let's do a show of hands. How many of you felt significantly more anxious between April and December 2020? I certainly did. And the patients who had treatment were not. And this was our confirmation with 764 patients over a full year. So this changed my views. This showed me the truth. Anxiety is not your enemy. It's not out to destroy you. It's a signal. It's there to help you connect. It's there to make you stronger. And it's there to show you when you can't control things and you need to do the hardest thing for a human being to do, to let go. That's what it's for. And as long as you see it in that lens, as long as you see it through a constructive, positive viewpoint and take that approach, it becomes your friend. It becomes a catalyst for growth. It does not need to hold you back. Even though your palms are sweating and your stomach drops and you feel uncomfortable. My approach will not get rid of anxiety from your life. There's only one solution to getting rid of anxiety. Death. Don't do that. The solution I'm going to give you is better than getting rid of anxiety. It's how to turn it into something positive. But it starts with acceptance and understanding that it's not your enemy. Now, I want to clarify something, though, something very important. sometimes anxiety really does interfere with a person's life. There is something called clinical anxiety disorders. If you can't sleep because of your anxiety, if you can't work, if you can't go to school, if you can't function, if you cannot go out, if you cannot engage in the life that you need to engage in because of anxiety or other symptoms, that is a clinical disorder which warrants professional attention. I am not making light of anxiety disorders. I believe there is a place for medication, there is a place for psychotherapy, they definitely are part of what we need. But it's not the only solution, because if we only seek to decrease or remove or eliminate anxiety, we actually make it worse. Those treatments, those professional treatments, get it down from a high range to a mid-range. But that mid-range, that's a good thing. So that's an important caveat going into tonight. This is not a replacement for professional treatment. It's a different way of using it. Some people really do go down into that hole, and we have to be respectful of that. In the United States, in fact, suicide is the leading cause of death for all individuals under age 35. And I read recently that here in Taiwan, females are almost just as likely as males to complete suicide. It's not like that in the States. In the States, it's about 2-to-1 completion of suicide from males to females. This is for children, even for children as young as 10 years old. There is so much emotional pain that people do experience. If anxiety is a good thing, why would this be? So we'll get to it. Here's something fascinating that I found when I was doing the research for my book. Individuals who live in low-income countries have half as much anxiety as individuals in middle-income countries, who have half as much anxiety as people in high-income countries. So this is shocking to me. This young woman is from Peru. She's 6 years old. She has not bathed in 30 days because there is no running water in her village. She's concerned about crime, about basic infrastructure. She doesn't have a toilet. Take a look at her smile. She's happier than almost any American kid that I have seen in the past couple of years. And statistically speaking, this young woman is 25% as likely. Put it differently, she is 3 times less likely to have anxiety compared to a 6-year-old girl living in California who gets chauffeured to school on engineered surfaces that are maintained every couple of months in a Tesla, who can sit in the back on her iPhone and order same-day Amazon whatever she wants to her home for later that day. That girl in California, 4 times as likely to have anxiety compared to her. Is it just me, or does this sound very strange to you? That individuals who live with greater security risk, less income, more sociopolitical constraints and struggle are actually at lower risk for anxiety compared to people with higher income, better health care, better infrastructure, more security, and more predictability in their lives. It's a very strange finding. And I think it fits in exactly with my counterintuitive experience before the pandemic, which is this. You have been taught to get rid of anxiety from your life. I was taught to get rid of anxiety from my life and from the lives of my patients. to remove it completely, literally to erase it. And not only is that impossible, I think it's narcissistic. I think it's iatrogenic. I actually think it increases the prevalence and the severity of anxiety. When you live with struggle, whether that's geopolitical tension or economic struggle or ecological issues, it's painful. It's scary. But it's not a disorder. When you realize you cannot eliminate struggle and pain from your life, it can help you to grow as opposed to trying to get rid of it. That is completely at odds with the way that modern psychiatry is practiced. Let me articulate this in very clear neurobiological terms. When you try to get rid of your anxiety, here's what happens moment by moment. You feel your palms sweating, you feel uncomfortable, and you think, oh no, something's wrong. I'm weak, I'm feeble, I shouldn't be feeling this way, I'm doing something wrong. Your adrenaline surges. It's going to increase because you're perceiving the anxiety as a threat, as if something is misfiring. That adrenaline makes you sweat more. It makes your heart drop more. It makes you breathe more intensely. It constricts your throat. The symptoms increase. And now you think, oh man, oh God, I'm really in trouble now. And the cycle repeats, and it takes you down into a very dark place. When you judge yourself, even subconsciously, for feeling anxious, for thinking that something's wrong, then the simple experience of a sweaty hand, the simple experience of your heart palpitating, is a trigger and a cue for further anxiety. But unfortunately, the cycle doesn't stop there, because in modern countries, the first place people turn to is medication. I'm going to say my caveat once again. If people have clinical disorders where anxiety is getting in the way of your life, please use these approaches to take your anxiety to a mid-range. But here's a secret that they usually don't tell you in American psychiatry. These approaches cannot get rid of all anxiety. They can take it to a reasonable range so you can function, but you got to handle the rest on your own, or with therapy, or whatever it is. When I was doing research for Thriving with Anxiety, I found a shocking statistic. There are 350 million people who live in the United States of America. And take a guess how many prescriptions for benzodiazepines alone, that's one class of psychiatric medication, the anti-anxiety pills, Ativan, Xanax. Have you heard of Xanax? I'm sure. Xanax, Valium, Ativan, Klonopin, that family. Take a guess how many prescriptions are dispensed on an annual basis by American pharmacies. Okay. Would you guess that it's 30 million? 35 million? That'd be 10% of the population. Does that sound right? It's higher. Any guesses to what it is? 70 million? 80? 90? The answer is over 100 million prescriptions are dispensed annually by American pharmacies for that one class of medication. And the reason is, I believe, we are trying to eliminate and erase all anxiety because we perceive this as a human weakness as opposed to recognizing that it is simply part of being human. It's not only about pharmacology, by the way. It could be about any form of medicine. It could be Chinese medicine, which is venerable and wonderful and very helpful to get things to a reasonable level. But if your goal is to eliminate it completely, you're barking up the wrong tree. There's a reason why. There's a reason why all of these approaches fail. I want to make one more thing clear. Since the advent, since the invention, since the creation of these approaches and their widespread dissemination throughout the world, anti-anxiety approaches, has anxiety increased or decreased? Substantially increased, to the point of suicide becoming the #1 cause of death under age 35, to the point of 20% of college students engaging in self-injury. I actually believe in some ways we have created this problem by buying into a culture of control. It is so nice to think that you can control your mind, that you can control your feelings, that you can control everything in the world. It is so nice to think that. But it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie. And we have to accept, we have to let go of that level of control. Now, it doesn't mean we can't influence how we feel, and it doesn't mean we can't be heroic in the context of stress, but it does mean that we are obsessed with control. And I think here in Taiwan, you are a lot better at this than we are in the United States. Americans are so obsessed with control, hopelessly individualistic and obsessed with control, and incredibly anxious. I used to think that anxiety was a problem. If I could draw a picture of anxiety for you today, this is what it would look like. Beneath the surface of these plants, there's a seed. That seed falls into the ground, or it's planted into the ground. It's watered, and it starts to grow. From a Western medical scientific perspective, it's a pathological process, because if you look deep into the ground before the shoots come up, the casing around the seed rots, and it smells, and it becomes putrid and disgusting. And if you were a surgeon, you would open up the ground, and you would remove the casing, and you would preserve just the seed, and then you would seal it up and suture it and make sure that just the core of the seed stays there, and that the putrid, disgusting mess that rots is removed and would never contaminate the soil and contaminate the seed. And if you did that, do you know what would happen? The plant would never grow. You would stunt its growth. Do you know why? Because the first nutrients that the core seed uses in order to propagate its growth, for the roots to go into the ground, is the casing itself. That rotting seed becomes the energy that fuels the growth of the plant. That's anxiety. It's not pleasant. It's not comfortable. But it's there for you. It's your friend. It's there to help you. Don't remove it. Find a way to use it. That's what we're going to do. That's what many leaders do. This is what many leaders do. Sir Winston Churchill was arguably the leader of the free world during the Second World War. The first time he got up to speak in the House of Commons in the UK as the Prime Minister of England, his mouth became dry and he froze with stage fright for 3 full minutes. The Prime Minister of England is freezing with stage fright. And he said, I am going to overcome my fear. I will overcome my fear of speaking. And it was his thunderous voice over the airwaves of the radio that carried the UK through those difficult years of the war. Oprah Winfrey. I'm sure you know Oprah Winfrey. Before she started Harpo Productions, she had a box office flop. She had a movie which completely didn't make it. And she became so depressed and so sad that she ate, at one point, I read, more than 30 boxes of macaroni and cheese in one sitting. That's a lot of macaroni and cheese. I think each box has 4 servings, okay? It's 128 servings of macaroni. Ugh. And she realized she had to let go, that there's nothing you can do to really control the masses. You put your best work out there, and it either goes or it doesn't. Is Taylor Swift popular here? I'm the only one who likes Taylor Swift in the audience. She's popular. Am I the only Swiftie? Come on. All right, Taylor Swift. Woo! Thank you. I realize I'm not the most likely Swiftie fan, but she's cool. The first time she sang the national anthem, also froze. She couldn't speak. She couldn't get up. She couldn't do it. Taylor Swift had stage fright. Okay, it's an astonishing fact. And her approach is to share her feelings, to talk about it. By the way, I think that's the hardest step. That's going to be the hardest one for us to talk about here in East Asia. Anxiety can do many good things for you. This is the shell for the 4 steps. I told you you're going to get a 4-step approach to turning anxiety from your enemy into your friend. In order to know those 4 steps, we have to know 4 things that anxiety can do for you. It can help you to become more self-aware. It can help you to strengthen your relationships. It can improve and increase your resilience and emotional strength. And most of all, ironically, anxiety can help you to let go of control and to become more calm directly. I'll take you through each one, and then the 4 steps, it'll be like, well, I wouldn't say a walk in the park, but it'll be obvious what we have to do. When you feel anxious, it's not random. It's happening for a reason. It's usually happening because you care, because something matters. If you're concerned about your family, if you're concerned about your finances, if you're concerned about being successful or about what people think about you, those are not a problem. That's an indication that something's going on in your mind. It's an indication that something matters to you. And furthermore, when you feel anxious, it's usually an indication like, am I prepared? Am I not prepared? What could be here? That's information about yourself. Being anxious in of itself is not a problem. It's an indication that you need to take inventory of your feelings and of your thoughts. Anxiety tries to get you to pay attention. It's like a smoke alarm. When the smoke alarm goes off in your kitchen, you go in and you say to yourself, and you take a look, why is this going off? What's going on here that set off the alarm? Just trying to decrease the anxiety is the equivalent of taking out the batteries from the smoke detector without taking a look at why did it go off in the first place. I have a practice that whenever I feel very anxious, within 24 hours, I will stop for at least 10 minutes and just think about what set me off. Why did I get afraid? And in taking this approach, anxiety becomes a window into your soul. It can help you to discover what you really care about. People only get anxious about what they care about. Anxiety can also help you to filter out information before you even think it. It can help you to become aware of pieces of data at a visceral level before it even crosses your mind. I remember working with a CEO once who was about to make a merger with their company, and something just felt off. And I said, you know what? You've been in business long enough. If you're feeling anxious, maybe there's something here. And she took a look. And there was literally malfeasance and fraud in the other company. She ended up calling off the merger and saved the fate of the organization that was there because of her anxiety. She used it to move forward, not to hold her back. Anxiety is a signal. Anxiety can also help you with your relationships. Okay, so, well, let me explain the concept first, and then I'll level with you. In order to be strong, we need to have relationships with others. But the irony of those relationships is that we need to be vulnerable in order to be close. When someone knows that you need them, that you depend on them, that you have some weakness in some ways, that's not bad for the relationship. That actually removes enough of your ego so that you can connect to them. That's how we create real relationships, is by relying on one another. So the irony is we are stronger together, but we have to make ourselves aware of our weakness in order to become close. So, as you might have guessed, I do not have Asian parents. I have Jewish parents. Jewish parents are similar than Asian parents. They also expect a lot in terms of performance, but I don't think it's quite as much, but it's relatable. My wonderful Jewish parents, at a certain point in my life, I had a conversation with them and expressed to them that I really want to make them happy. I want to make them proud. Is that embarrassing? Should I not have shared that? I do. And it was scary for me because I admitted to them that the way that they perceive me changes how I feel. That gave them a lot of power, right? I gave them a card that they could play. But in doing so, in showing that vulnerability, it's enhanced my connection with my parents through leaps and bounds because they know that I care. And once they see that I'm anxious about the relationship and that it really matters to me, they can also drop their guard too and don't expect quite as much. And now I can overperform, which is kind of nice. Often when we pretend that we don't need the other, that our emotions aren't shaped by the reactions of other people, we create a barrier. And anxiety can actually create more closeness when we express it in the right way at the right time. There's another thing anxiety can do. It can increase your resilience. Take a look at this guy. He is a disgusting, sweaty mess. I can almost smell him off the screen. Ugh. Why is he doing this? Well, he's a beast. The guy is ripped. He is super strong, right? Anxiety can do the same thing to you. How many of you have heard of something called exposure therapy? Show of hands. How many of you have heard of exposure therapy? Only a couple. Well, this is going to blow your mind. When people have clinical anxiety disorders, one of the first things we do is called exposure therapy, which means that we have them expose themselves to exactly that which makes them feel anxious. The treatment is to face your fears. Anyone here afraid of public speaking? Anyone want to come up? Take the mic for a couple minutes? Many people would rather die than speak in public. What about going on planes? Or touching a spider? Or snakes? I literally have a guy on speed dial in my phone who I can call, who will come to my New York City office with a snake or a spider or a cat. I'm serious. I've had snakes around my neck. Well, if I'm going to ask my patients to do it, I have to do it too. And it's uncomfortable. And that's how they grow in resilience. When you do that which makes you feel anxious, it increases your emotional muscle tone. That's what helps you to withstand the vicissitudes and the challenges of life, is by intentionally doing it. I actually wish that every school throughout the entire world would challenge students to do something that makes them feel emotionally uncomfortable once every week. A single activity. Did you do that which makes you feel emotionally uncomfortable? As long as it's physically safe, I'm fine with it. There's a phrase that we use in the psychotherapy world for exposure therapy. We say, do it scared. Do it scared. Not that you don't do it, and not that you don't feel scared. Be scared and do it. It will transform your life. By the way, the last time I gave a talk like this and I said, do it scared, I got an email 4 days later from someone with a video of them going skydiving, saying, you said do it scared, watch this, and then they jumped out of a plane with a parachute. I'm like, I didn't say that. I did not say do that, but that actually happened. As long as it's safe, though, technically speaking, he might be right. Okay, show of hands. Who here likes to lose control? You like to lose control? You are in politics. You're resilient. Who else likes to lose control? I do not like to lose control, having it stripped from my hands when I think I have it. It's right here, and no, I thought I had it. I thought it was all ready. I thought it was good to go, and no, it's not. It's terrible and anxiety-provoking. But let me ask you, who here likes to let go, which I think is what you were talking about? Does anyone like roller coasters? No? Not popular here? No? Professor? Not a roller coaster fan? Okay. Dancing? Trying new foods? Traveling to new places? Taking risks? Going on a first date? These are exhilarating because they bring up the same exact neurobiological system that we have in anxiety. In anxiety, the fight or flight system. With excitement, also the fight or flight system. It's adrenaline. But there's one key difference. When you're having anxiety, you're holding on and trying to maintain control, and it's being taken away. And when you're having an exhilaration experience, you're letting go. But you're channeling the same neurobiological process. I have a colleague who told me that whenever she goes on an airplane, she has a ritual that she does. She walks over to touch the aluminum can, and then goes and sits in her seat, and fastens her seatbelt, and says, I'm off duty. Has a drink. Someone else is flying the plane. I'm going for a ride. And she lets go. When that door closes to the cockpit, she's not in charge. She wouldn't even want to be in the cockpit because she's not a pilot. That's the approach of acknowledging when we're not in control and letting go. Anxiety occurs when we sense a lack of control. When we lean into it and say, yeah, I'm not in control. It actually becomes a spiritually uplifting experience as opposed to something that holds us back. Okay, are you ready for the 4 steps? Do you promise you will not misuse these steps instead of psychotherapy or medication if you need them? I need a promise. No, I really need a promise. Okay. Now, I need someone to tell me how to say these in the local language. What would you say is identify? To identify the root of your anxiety. Identify. Here, come up here. I need your help. Sorry to make you anxious. Come on up. Okay, identify. What is that word? Okay, in one word. Okay, everybody together. You say it and then they say it. Great, thank you. Okay, hold on. We're going to do the other ones. To identify, share. That's when I tell you how I feel. Okay, that was, you know what, say that again. I want to hear it loud. That's a really hard one, especially here in East Asia. Very nice, thank you. Okay, to embrace. Embrace is to do things that make you feel anxious. I'm going to intentionally do something that makes me feel anxious in order to build my grit and resilience. Let's try that one more time. All right, fine. And the last one is to let go. Perfect. Thank you very much. Give her a round of applause. I want to take you through them one more time. When you feel anxious, don't look at your phone, don't distract yourself, don't move on. Mindfully be aware of what is making you feel uncomfortable. If you're too busy, if it's in the middle of your workday, or if you're about to go to sleep and you need to just call it a day and do it the next day, that's fine. But within 24 hours, please stop and identify the root of why you feel anxious. What set you off? What made you feel uncomfortable and why? Spend the time with yourself and enjoy the process of self-discovery, of self-awareness, of opening up that window into your soul by taking anxiety as the lead to understand yourself and to know what you really care about. Identify. Share. Talk with someone about your anxiety. Speak about it. If you need a therapist, pay someone to do it. If you want to call me, call me. You can. 617-910-7790. Please. +1. That's my phone number, really. People call me and text me all the time what they're feeling anxious about. I love it. It's human. If you're too nervous to call me, call Tsuchi. Call my friend, Professor Her. Should I give him your number? Yeah. Don't worry. Talk to a friend. Talk to a stranger. Talk to a stranger. I've done this. Hey, you know, what's your name? Yeah, I feel really anxious right now. Oh, really? What's going on? You know, well, here's what's going on. Well, that makes sense you feel anxious. Thanks for telling me. And now he's my friend. I'm not joking. Is that like a very American thing to do? Speak to someone about your anxiety. Ideally, if you're anxious about the relationship, try to have a conversation with that person. Sometimes that requires a little more planning. But be vulnerable in front of somebody else. When you allow yourself to experience that anxiety and share it, you're giving that person the opportunity to validate that your feelings make sense and that you don't have to be perfect. Let's be honest. none of us are perfect. Well, maybe you are, but I'm not perfect. And sharing that actually makes it easier for us to connect, not harder. So do it, share. Embrace. This one's easy. Once a week, do something that makes you feel anxious, whatever it is. If you feel shy in class and you don't want to raise your hand, breathe and go, Professor, I have something to say. Take that risk. Put that social media post out there that you're not sure how it's going to land. If it doesn't go well, don't do it again. Post about something else. Take the chance. Be bold. You only live once, and build your resilience in the process. And finally, let go. Whatever you are afraid of in step one, at a certain point in life, we have to admit something. We're not in control of that outcome. We're not. Especially in this era of history, where we've seen in the last 5 years how a small change in one area of the world spreads and moves, and all of a sudden, our whole world is upended. I spent so much time the last couple days with Chengchi Foundation, and I see the relief work that they do. And I had this palpable experience yesterday meeting with some of the disaster volunteers and realizing that we are standing on a razor's edge, that at any moment in time, you're literally on a fault line here in Taipei. It's scary. And that keeps us humble. And that keeps us, I believe, spiritually focused on what really matters in life. One of the things that I've observed the most, one of the things that I've been moved the most in my observations of being here in Taiwan is your country's acceptance of uncertainty. Your acceptance of uncertainty. And your ability to thrive, not despite uncertainty, but I think it's because of it. I think that the resilience that I've seen over the last couple days comes because you're aware that there's a lack of control and that that's actually a good thing. That's thriving with anxiety. Identify, share, embrace, and let go. Now I have a gift for you. I know gifts are very, very important. I've received, I don't know how many gifts over the last several days of being at Chengchi. So I have a small gift for you, which you can scan the QR code over there, which is a 10-minute video on the 4 steps. And you're welcome to take a look at it, keep it, and you can share it with others if you like. I think my office also set up a quick questionnaire about this talk, which I'd really love to get your feedback on. And I do appreciate that very much. I see people clicking through, so I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. Okay, so if you haven't finished, keep clicking through. But I will conclude here by saying just one thing. that if you remember one point from this entire talk, please let it be this. Anxiety is not an indication that you are broken. It is simply an indication of one thing, only one thing. Anxiety means that you are human. Thank you very much.